I believe we're on. My name is Don McKinnon. This is Agree to Disagree.
And my name is John Cockrum. Thank you for being with us again.
Well, I would like to have John start off with one of his 10-minute episodes.
Yeah, as you know, we've developed a habit of centering on a main topic, and Don and I have a lot of fun with it because I tell him it's about 10 minutes.
10
By
minutes.
the time he's through with his questions, it ends up being a half an hour.
See,
So
he agrees that I'm the one that makes it go. We agree on that.
anyway, the topic today is the insurance single-payer plan. Now, as I've said in previous Agree to Disagree shows, I believe Obamacare is a disaster.
I've heard you say that.
Don feels differently. It's so bad that now news outlets are focused on Obamacare, and even late-night comedy shows are using the program as fodder for jokes. But I can now say that my previous alarm has subsided. Why? Because I'm now convinced that the program will collapse under its own weight. However, even if Obamacare goes away, there is an even greater risk to our capitalist and free market system, Don.
Mm-hmm.
The single-payer insurance system is in use in many countries, including Britain and Canada. It is a socialist program that is entirely run by the government. President Obama, Harry Reid, and Nancy Pelosi have all indicated their strong support for the single-payer insurance system as their ultimate goal for the American people.
When you say single payer, you mean that insurance companies commercially would cease to exist?
That's correct.
Just government?
That's right.
Like your and mine Medicare?
Like your and my Medicare. That's right. Adoption of this insurance would collapse competition in a huge part of the private sector, eliminate a giant tax source for the reason Don just mentioned, no more profit companies running insurance, and therefore no more taxes.
Have they submitted that, John?
And no, but I believe that's what they're evolving to.
You think after the success of this, they're going to try
That's
that?
exactly why I think we might end up coming to that, because I believe that this will
You
fail.
believe this will? Oh, I said.
And I believe that everything's going to be so messed up that they're almost not going to have any choice but go the rest of the way. Now, I mentioned the three key people here that have given their endorsement to the single-payer plan. However, they've stated publicly that that was nothing more than, to them, a step on the way as far as they were concerned to the single-payer plan. So what you have
what
now,
they have now.
What they have with Obamacare is a bit of a hybrid. We still have the private companies involved.
Yeah.
We still have the profitability factor involved. However, on the other hand, the government controls the policies, the coverage, some of the rates, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of a hybrid. Now, let's look at some other dangers of adopting the single-payer system. And I'm going to use Canada as an example.
A lot of my friends are in Canada. Watch it, buddy.
Okay. Then they ought to be able to verify this for you. Okay, after 30
They don't
years,
answer my calls, John.
30
but
years
that's all right.
of government intervention, by the way, that's how long Canada has had this.
20 years they've had
30
single
years.
payer?
30 years single payer.
Single payer?
Yeah.
No, there are no insurance companies in Canada.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean,
Oh.
it's all controlled by the government over there. Mediocre health care. I'm enumerating
Yeah,
the.
yeah, I know.
you
It's
know,
a matter.
the
That's
issues.
a subjective statement.
Yeah. Many Canadians often come to the United States for specialized care and procedures.
I
That's
would
a
if I
fact.
would. Yes.
Canadians often find they must wait months and sometimes years for critical care. Think about that. For example, Canadians face an average wait of 3 months or more just to get an MRI. The result is that some people may no longer need the service.
Because they're dead.
That's part of it, due to long
That'll
waiting
do it.
times.
That'll do it. If
There you go. No, you're getting
you
ahead
don't
of me
need the
here,
MRI.
as usual. I didn't read who wrote this, so it might have been your name at the bottom. I'll have to check that
Could
when I
have
go
been.
home.
You and I agree to agree.
There's a lack of access to current technology.
In Canada?
Yes, big problem. Doctors' annual incomes are capped by the government,
Wow.
and so are hospital budgets. The result is a severe underinvestment in high-tech equipment. And you can see how that would happen. In other words, if they're selling, they're going to get every dollar they can out of a budget.
Yeah.
And then what's left over goes to the technology and the machinery, et cetera. It'd be kind of like in the school system, where the teachers got most of the extra money from taxes, and the kids didn't get their fair share. The teachers got big raises.
What money do the kids get, John? What are
Yeah.
you talking about?
I'm talking about
You're
money for the, I'm
very-
talking about money to support their papers, goods, classes, et
Oh, I
cetera.
see. In other words,
And
they
I'm
wouldn't
not
have-
suggesting that's the case in
No,
Raynham.
no.
I'm saying that happens, and it happens more than rarely. There are increasing costs to taxpayers and patients. It is estimated that the Canadian system costs $7,350 per year for a person earning $35,000. That's over 20%.
That's right.
That's a lot of money
That is a lot of
for that salary
That's
in
right.
particular. But since Canadians don't pay for it when they use it, again, the one
You
thing,
mean when they get their care?
when they get their care, that's
It's
right. They
no-
don't
there's
take
no deductible.
Nothing out of pocket
You
because
don't have
everything's
to
paid
come up
by
with
the government.
1,000.
Yeah. When the results is overuse and inefficient use of primary care facilities. Now, you can understand that. If I don't have to pay for the doctor, I'll go to the doctor for anything. I have a sniffle, I'll go to the doctor.
Do you think that's what happens now? Not to divert you because you're in your 10 minutes and I don't want to.
Yeah. You've already done that, so go ahead.
I know I have. I did. I apologize to you and your family.
No, and my
But-
family?
but-
Okay.
Yeah.
They
Well,
won't see
you
this
never
until
know. They
then.
may. Well, I don't want to offend anybody,
Yeah.
including your family.
Yeah.
But do you think the emergency wards where the people who have no money go now?
Yes.
Do you think they go all the time for just about anything? Is that already
Yeah.
happening? Okay.
I think that is happening.
All right.
I
In
think there are
this
many,
country
many.
at this time.
I think there are many, many examples of that.
Yeah.
Because they don't have any insurance.
I see.
You know, doctors' offices generally aren't going to take them in,
That's right.
so they
just,
have no other place
They
to
just
go.
run over to the.
They also probably go to some daycare clinics. I think they have to take them as well. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's the
No, I
same
just
thing.
didn't want to.
Yeah, if they don't have to pay, Don,
Yeah, I know.
you know,
Well, that's
the
what
thing.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I wrote that, so don't you-
Yeah. Finally, there is a brain drain of doctors who head to the United States for better working conditions and more money.
They deserve money, by the way, doctors.
I
It's
would-
a
I
very
would say they do.
difficult thing to become a doctor.
It is a very difficult
difficult.
thing.
They have to be
There's a
not
ton of
only
education,
intelligent, they
huge
have to
amount
have
of
patience,
expenses,
long time.
college expenses,
Internship,
college
they're
loans,
working for nothing.
internship. Yeah, you name it. So,
Then the malpractice insurance.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I
can
really
attest.
I admire doctors.
Having worked for the Massachusetts Division of Insurance myself,
Mm-hmm.
I can attest that malpractice insurance is hugely expensive.
Wow, so
Hugely.
much so that a doctor has trouble being semi-retired
That's right.
because their malpractice is so
And
expensive.
it also depends on what profession you have, what kind of a doctor you
Yeah,
are.
whether you're a specialist or
That's
a
right.
general practitioner,
And then even with-
primary physician.
Yes, and even within the specialty ranks,
I know.
it depends on what you specialize in.
Right.
For instance, if you're a baby doctor, you know, you
That's
have
a
to pay.
technical term you're
You have to
using.
pay a lot of, yeah, that's a layman's term. You have to pay a lot of money for that.
Yeah.
But if you're a heart surgeon, if you're a brain surgeon, I mean, you know, you're talking big bucks here
That's
that they have to pay.
That's
You're
right.
right. So, the bottom line in all of this is that if you hear increasing news after this whole Obama thing collapses,
Which
as
you
I-
think it's going
as
to.
I forecast it will. I know you
Do
made
you
the
also
comment.
tell weather, John, or you just do things like they didn't know whether it's
Would
going to
you-
rain tomorrow?
Would you believe that I had meteorology as a hobby when I was a kid?
I would bet
should have known
I would have
that,
thought
Doc.
you did. I could tell fortunes.
You said a couple of shows ago,
Yes, what I say.
you said, John,
Yeah.
I guarantee you said in 5 to 7 years, Obamacare will be flourishing.
Yes.
And people will look back and say, what a great program it was. I take the
Yes.
opposite view.
In
And I
5 to
say,
7 years,
never going to
they'll-
make it to
Not
5 to
gonna
7
make it
years.
5 to 7.
And what are we going to have instead?
Okay.
So I end by saying, if the single-payer system pops up as
Yeah.
a bigger topic of conversation,
Yeah.
then you better run in the other direction
Well,
as
my age,
fast
John.
as you can.
At my age, I'm not running anywhere,
you
John.
could
Now,
still
you just say,
outrun me.
I better shuffle
Yeah.
in another direction. That's
So, what other thoughts do you have on
well,
that you'd like to share?
we agree to agree. I always believe in competition. I believe
okay.
that government should step in where business either cannot or will not. And that's where I think the United States Post Office started originally, to get a letter from point A to B. Industry couldn't do it, so therefore government did it. And that's why in comes United Parcel Service,
Right.
FedEx, and so therefore people are talking about closing down maybe post offices.
sure.
And there's something to be said about that.
Well, Don,
because
they closed down the Pony Express before the post office. It's a matter of
are you sure
evolving
that's so? I thought
technology.
they don't have that anymore.
Not with the post office.
I see these. I
You
thought.
know, I mean, let's face it. I'll tell you
You
the
think
death
it's
of the
over?
post office.
Yeah.
Companies like Amazon.com,
Yeah.
okay?
Well, yes. Yeah.
But Amazon.com is
Yeah.
now aligning themselves, as you might have heard, they're going to deliver on Sundays.
I
now.
know they are.
So that may keep them
Yeah.
afloat.
Yeah.
That may be a godsend to them in the final analysis. But really, the thing is technology. People don't send as many letters now. They use the internet. They use their iPhones. They use their smartphones. They text. They do all these things.
While they're
where-
driving,
so
some of them,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's another subject.
That's yeah, for
But
another day.
so
No,
all
but
right, so I appreciate your
no,
point
I
there.
agree. I agree with you. I believe there always should be competition. I think that if government can perform something, basically that industry will not.
Right.
Because I've said this to you either last or the time before, because we've talked about this
Yeah.
for several weeks. It's that important. But I've said that it is not the rich and not the poor. It is the working poor
Right.
that really need some form of insurance. Now, why do they draft these things so it's more complicated than people can understand, John? That is what I think you're talking about, or I think that is the problem, that government can't seem to do things simple. Most problems that are
Obamacare,
complicated.
1,000 pages to start,
Very compli-
18,000 pages now.
Absolutely. And it's a,
Yeah. Here we go. What are you gonna have a little bunny pop out of it?
no. That's the white flag.
Okay, I accept.
I surrender. I do. I surrender, John.
All right, very good.
No,
Very good.
Obamacare is falling by the wayside. But being the eternal optimist, as I am.
Yes, I know you are.
I am anyway.
know
Even
you.
though I've
We need
surrendered,
people like you, by
even
the
though
way.
I've surrendered, even as a prisoner of war, I still can work in the camp. But that's what they had that on 60 Minutes the other day, where the people are yelling out of their cells. So I can yell out of my cell, and I would say that. And I think you and I agreed on one thing. And as an old rating and statistical person, I believe I understand it well. Previous condition, people who
Yes.
have previous conditions should, and that's what I mean about government getting involved where
right,
the industry will not.
Right.
Government should provide for people who have previous conditions.
No argument from me.
But
For that piece.
But here's the problem that it faces. The reason that industry doesn't do it is that they would lose their shirt if they
course they
tried to
would.
do it. Or
Of course they would.
their rates would be so high
That's
on
right.
Joe Citizen that they couldn't sell their policy.
That's right.
So government has to do things that private industry will not.
And Don, I've said right from
Yeah,
the
I know you
beginning,
have.
and
No,
I think
I-
everybody has said
Yeah.
right from the beginning,
Yeah.
two things about the Obama plan that I find to be necessary.
Okay.
Previous conditions.
Yes.
And also the issue of students on their parents' insurance. And you know why? Because students can't get jobs anymore. I know. How are they going to pay for their own insurance when they can't even get jobs?
Well, see, this is why they thought that young people would jump on this, but
Yeah.
they really haven't
No,
jumped on it.
Absolutely not. And now they see that they're not going to have
But
the
if
young
they don't
people.
have insurance, shouldn't they jump on this, John?
Depends on their mentality. No, they have to pay into this, and
Oh,
from
yes.
their perspective,
Yeah.
they're paying for something that they probably won't need because they're young, and because they're overly
But
optimistic.
yet you would be in favor of family insurance be continued into what year? How old would they be before they?
I would say that because insurance is such a dramatic thing, that if a family is working, and I'm saying if a family is working, they're doing their best.
They're working poor. This
Yeah,
is what I'm
they
talking
got
about.
kids,
Did I not say?
they got
Yes.
kids trying to find a job
Yes.
or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you almost treat it like a welfare type of
Yeah.
thing. You know, the
Yeah.
welfare system, the way
Yeah.
it existed,
Yeah.
it's changed again, but for a while they had the right idea. Okay, we'll give you welfare, but you have to prove to us that you're looking for a job. Okay? If you don't
Not
prove
many
to,
people doing that.
no,
John.
I know, because a lot of the things changed. They want to go back to that.
Hmm.
There's even some bills about that. But Dawn, remember how Obamacare passed? With Nancy Pelosi saying, we have to pass the bill so we can read it afterwards and find out what is in it, which was the most nonsensical thing I think I have ever heard in my entire life.
But
Very
you know,
few
she's
quotes.
such a fine person.
Yes, I know you. I know you. I
She's a little
understand that.
shy, but she's
Yes,
a
she's
fine.
very shy.
She's very
Timid
timid,
is the
timid
word.
and shy, but she's a
Absolutely.
very nice
Absolutely.
person. Yes.
And then all the Democrats voted in favor of it, and not one Republican in either house. Not in the Senate,
let me-
not in the House.
Let me tell you something I heard just a couple of days ago, and I don't know if it's true. If it is true, it'd be very interesting to people in Raynham.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Lynch did not vote for it.
Stephen Lynch did not vote for,
Obamacare.
but he didn't vote. He didn't vote for Obamacare. Stephen Lynch.
That's what I heard. That could be.
Yeah.
That could be so.
You may be right. I'm saying all the
If you know
all the
Steve
people
Lynch
that
like I
passed
do,
it,
and you do, he probably didn't vote for it.
all the people that passed it were
Yeah.
Democrats, is what
Okay.
I'm saying. I don't know if
Well-
a couple decided not to vote.
Well, it'd be
Yeah, wait a
Steve
minute, I
Lynch.
think I remember reading something about that,
Yeah,
too. now
but
that you
Stephen
mention it.
Lynch did not.
Yeah, so anyway, so then that passed, and then they had to launch it. They didn't discuss it at all with the other side of the aisle. And then they had to launch the thing, knowing full well ahead of time that it wasn't going to work.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yes, knowing,
Oh, now we agree to disagree.
Okay,
Do you
absolutely.
believe anyone in their right mind would go into? I'll tell you, someone made a mention, and you're going to take it up in a little while
Yeah.
here, that what Obama doesn't have. Obama, as John Kennedy had Bobby Kennedy,
right,
Obama doesn't have. Now, maybe the fellow that went to Chicago to be mayor, maybe he might have been a person who could have talked to Obama candidly. There is something about the power position and the body language that conveys to staff whether they are ready to hear objections and warning shots. And so evidently, and this I believe,
Okay.
evidently Obama has a fault like this. Evidently,
yes,
because
he does.
okay, and
You're right.
but he doesn't have someone who would sit down with him
Well-
and look at this thing, and say, you know, this isn't going to work based on the time we have. As a matter of fact, after he came out and tried to make a positive statement about we'll do this by the end of November or October or something like that, you know, the people who know this kind of business said, no, it's not going to happen. That's
Yeah.
people who know the business.
Well,
knew it
here's
wasn't
the
gonna
issue
happen.
now. It's funny you
But see,
bring.
he did. But John, he didn't go into this thing thinking it wasn't going to work.
It's funny you bring that piece of it
Now, how
up
come you're
because
not laughing? If it's
I
funny?
just heard.
Okay. You got-
Well, funny in a quizzical way,
quizzical,
not in a
okay.
comedic
Not
way.
in, no, and you apologize to myself and my
Oh, sure.
family.
Give me where's that white flag?
I used to have a card like that when I was in the Army called
Did you?
a TS card. I won't say what it means.
Remember you saw you hold one of those up at the selectmen.
Used to be a chaplain used to have a punch it. They used to say, I have never heard a story sadder than yours.
Yeah.
and they used to punch it. Chaplains used to punch it.
Now, I don't know whether it was the first term or the second term of Mr. Obama,
Oh, it's the second that always kills you.
but I heard on the news, I think this was within the last, I'll say 4 to 5 days, one of those terms, he only had one official meeting with his cabinet.
That would sound,
The entire term.
yeah.
Now, what does that tell you?
Oh,
On the other hand, and they said he prefers to have maybe 2 or 3 confidants.
yep.
Whether they know about what's involved or not doesn't matter. He's comfortable with that. He's not comfortable with going to his cabinet where all the expertise lies. Now, that reminds me of, and this will remain anonymous except for my short story. I know you like short stories.
And I like anonymous.
Very short story, and you like
because
anonymous.
they're usually more interesting.
There was a bank that failed a number of years ago.
First National Bank of Boston.
Do you know what anonymous means?
Yes.
Okay. And
Right.
but don't fish. Don't bait me now.
No,
Okay.
no.
It went under. And one of the biggest reasons that it went under was because it had a very power-driven leader, CEO. And the CEO made it known to his staff that he didn't want to hear about any bad news.
Yes.
He said, you know, I don't want to hear about bad news. If there's bad news, you take care of it. As a result of that, and through his actions along the way, and through people that he dismissed.
The end of that bank, huh?
You know what happened? They didn't tell him when there were real problems. And then the bank went under. And then he said, nobody ever told me.
Yeah.
Now, that's a real problem.
Yeah.
Now, the best way to manage is this way. You've heard the expression, you keep your friends close, but you keep your enemies closer?
Yes, I've heard
All right.
that before.
That kind of grows
That's right.
out of that as
Yeah.
well. But the other thing, Dawn, is that these people that don't want to be challenged will have an attitude like that, and they'll make it known. Now, the best form of management is to spend time with the people that don't agree with you, because they will give you the best perspective
Yeah.
on what might be wrong
And we
with
assume-
your ideas and your strategies.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Oh, I said what you've. Why did you see a surrender flag? I'm sorry, you missed
No,
that.
I
okay,
missed
you
that.
did say okay.
I thought that was only on the Obamacare.
Well,
You surrendered
well,
it?
well, it's an Obama's care management style.
That's right.
Which you know,
right.
there was a guy from the South who didn't like the Yankees, and he used to say, "Legislate against me," and when you bring the business down there because you can get it cheaper in the
Yes,
South,
yeah.
legislate against me, and I'll put you in a dump truck and send you home with no money, type of thing. Because when a guy's down, you really shouldn't kick him. And John, Obama is down. There's no doubt about this. Will he recover from this? Did George, the youthful George, recover from, what was it, the hurricane that hit or something, the flood? He didn't recover.
But
They say. Oh, no, you think he did recover?
He didn't. No, I'm saying that Obama.
I'm saying Obama may not recover from this. It's true.
Doesn't help his cause, Don. If he comes
because of his
forward to the
management style, I
American
know.
people. Listen, when Obama got
I know,
elected,
we're kicking him when he's down, and I'm adding to it now.
when Obama got elected,
know.
we're Americans. Everybody wanted to see him succeed.
Yeah,
The whole country was excited about it.
I know.
And
Of course.
why not?
Well, not everybody.
Well, not everybody, but most people wanted to see him succeed.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
then
did.
his policy.
Did you want to see him succeed?
Of course I did.
Okay.
And then his policies, and then his, his programs and so forth, has brought this country down to its knees. I don't care what part of it you look at. Look at the foreign situation with all these countries and the lack of respect and the Syria debacle and all these other things. He's been totally ineffective in foreign policy. We don't have a robust economy. We still have lousy jobs. There's a lower participation rate in the job force than there ever has been before. And he doesn't create jobs. He takes away jobs. This whole Obamacare kills jobs. You got to go back to part-time from full-time because the employers don't want to pay the Obamacare. You have to get laid off because the employers don't want 50 or more people. The things he comes up with at a time when we're suffering here are totally outrageous.
He's down, John.
And that's because he's so far
Are you
over.
kicking him?
He's so far over. I'm kicking his programs. I never kick
Not
him.
him personally.
Never. No, I did that in a boxing ring years ago. I don't do that.
And also, I might add,
Don't
while
do
you're
that,
on the old days, so people will understand about the bank, which John will not share, anonymous, but John was a bank examiner for many years, so
Yeah.
people should know that. So,
35 years.
So the story you're telling is not hearsay.
No, I can assure you of that. So anyway, I think it's been his approach and his
Yeah,
procedure and the
yeah.
arrogance, incredible.
Management style.
Also, I believe personally that he's violated the Constitution more than any president in
Oh,
history.
I don't know about that.
With executive orders.
You leave Richard Nixon out of this.
No, Richard Nixon, let me tell you, Richard, as far as violating the Constitution goes, I mean, there was Watergate. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, well, you mean that actually happened?
That was a bad incident. Yeah, it actually.
All right,
Did you
I didn't
see
know if that
Forrest Gump?
happened.
Did you see?
I love Forrest Gump.
So did I.
Thought that was a great movie.
So did I. Do you want to move to something?
Sure, but okay,
I know
I'll
you
give
had
you,
something.
in moving to it, I will also point up a little bit of a problem that he had. And this is coming, this will show, and then beyond it, of course, November 22nd, 1963, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated. But I will just very quickly get into, they've had a lot of films on him recently, and I've been watching some of them on Channel 2. And a guy that I didn't show respect at the time for various reasons, but as I get older, I realized how good he was Dwight David Eisenhower. And when John Fitzgerald Kennedy went along with his first action was the Bay of Pig invasion,
Right.
he then asked Eisenhower to come and he wanted to talk to him. And Eisenhower said, "How many people did you talk to about this?" And Kennedy said, "Well, I went with the CIA on this one, you know." And Eisenhower said, "Don't do that again. Don't do that again. Talk to multiple," well, we're just talking about the president, "talk to many people about these things and then make your decision. You may not agree with them one way or the other," but he said, "You didn't talk," and Eisenhower was candid with him, and history now releases that information, which we didn't know at the time. Eisenhower told him how to correct. Eisenhower had his dark side, but that was good advice to John
Well, he
Fitzgerald
didn't get
Kennedy.
along too well with Patton, who was
Eisenhower.
who was a brilliant commander.
Well, he was a bull in the china
They
shop.
were, they were competitors.
No, they were competitors. One guy was a subordinate. Patton was the subordinate.
My
to
two
Eisenhower.
heroes, you know, Davy Crockett and Patton.
Is that right? Well, Patton got a flat tire down the street from me, and I went in and tried to wave to him, and he wouldn't pay attention to me.
Yeah.
It was my street was the old 128 in 1940 something, right after the war. But
go.
yeah, I love Patton. I think he was a great general, as was his son.
Yeah.
And his son basically did the same thing in Vietnam that George Patton did in Europe, and he didn't get the publicity because the press wasn't with them on Vietnam. So that's for another day. But maybe we can talk for a minute on John Fitzgerald Kennedy out of respect, rather than bringing up his negative. He did have the Peace Corps, which is still going. He did do he started some things. He did get into the beginning of civil rights. I think that Lyndon Baines Johnson, if it wasn't for Vietnam, would have been considered one of our greatest presidents because of his civil rights legislation and his legislation for Medicare for you and I and things of that nature. But John Fitzgerald Kennedy, I believe, learned from his mistakes. Now, maybe Obama will. He's got 5 years to go, John. Hasn't he?
5?
3?
3.
2? 1?
Don't make it any longer, Don. 3.
Well, maybe he learns from this, though. He might learn from this. My contention
I would say
about
most presidents would.
well, I'm saying John Fitzgerald
Clinton
Kennedy
did.
and John Kennedy did also.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Exactly.
saying that, you know, maybe this President Obama will do this. But I would like your thoughts on John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
I think one of the things, first of all, you know, he's idolized everywhere. Everybody remembers John Kennedy. You know, the whole Kennedy family aura, referred to as, quote, Camelot.
Which was started
Unquote.
by Jackie Kennedy,
Yeah.
by the way.
Jackie Kennedy was one
after his
of
death.
the greatest
First
ladies, first ladies.
Yes.
She was just absolutely brilliant as a first lady.
Culturally, she was probably as good as there ever was.
I think so. I think so. I would
Eleanor
put her,
Roosevelt and Abigail Adams, of course, were
Yeah.
almost quasi-presidents.
I mean, I
But
would put her up
Jacqueline
there
was-
in terms of her presence with Princess Diana.
Yeah, yes,
You know?
good comparison.
Yeah, and
comparison.
she was magnificent. She was wonderful and very, very dignified. And
Spoke French.
yeah, and however, you know, there was no question that there was some trouble in the relationship because of John's proclivity for visiting other ladies on occasion, so history tells it. But Jackie, trooper throughout the whole thing, you know, carried her head high. And I just found this out the other day. I think I might have mentioned it to you a little earlier, but when Jack Kennedy was being buried, she actually wore the same clothes she did
Yeah, you said that.
when he
yeah.
got shot.
Yeah.
Bloody clothes.
Wow.
And when they asked her about it, she said, you know, I want to do this because I want to be closer to my husband.
Isn't that something?
And so forth. And
Yeah.
by the way, even though she married the Greek magnate there, I forget his name at the moment, but
Aristotle?
yes, I believe that was it. And she was buried next to Jack, not
Right,
her second
right,
husband.
right.
She was buried next
The
to Jack.
Kennedy, as we're talking about, you know, events and all, the Kennedy family is very, I'm going to say Brighton before, in around Brighton or in around that area there. Joseph Kennedy and Rose Kennedy are buried in that area.
Yeah.
Right off of Boston College, by the way. And when Patrick Bouvier,
Yeah.
who was the child who died practically at birth,
Right.
was buried, he was buried there in the family, what they called the family plot at
Right.
that time.
Right.
And but when Kennedy was assassinated, which was, by the way, within weeks of the burial of Patrick Bouvier,
Yes.
he was exhumed from that burial site and brought again to the location. They were talking with Doris Kearns Goodwin. I haven't bought the book, but I'm going to tell you out there, buy the book. Anything by Doris Kearns Goodwin is wonderfully written history. But the family itself, though, in remembering them, you've got to remember that they were like a magnet in where he's buried because of that eternal flame, which again was Jacqueline
Which
Kennedy.
Jackie's request.
And Kathleen and Catherine and
Yeah.
Goodwin
Yeah.
said that down right within 100 yards or so is Taft, buried
Right.
Taft. She said, and of course her latest novel is on Teddy Roosevelt and Taft, and she said nobody goes down to Taft's grave. Would somebody go down there and say a prayer for Taft? You know, but that's
want
the
him to
thing.
be alone.
The Kennedys are a magnet to
Oh, there's
people
no
to this
question.
day.
They're a once-in-a-lifetime family
Yeah.
now. Let me tell you something that was interesting to me. When I married my wife, her father was a crane operator, did heavy equipment
Yeah.
moving.
Sure.
He actually built the Kennedy's pool in Hyannis,
Oh,
along with some other guys.
so he knew the family kind
He knew
of.
the family, and they were all boys when he did that.
I know.
Years and years
I
ago.
know, yeah.
And he said that they seemed like good boys to him because they would come out with iced tea.
Oh,
This was in the summertime.
so
It
they were
was
good kids.
Hot. They were good kids. And so he told that story, and I thought to myself, can you imagine?
That's a good
And
story.
all of them were there at
Yeah.
the time, even Joe, who of course died in the war. But when you think
Joe Jr.
when you think of all of the boys being, either dying in the war or being assassinated, except for Ted, and Ted ended up obviously with a brain tumor,
And he proved to
passed
be
that
a
way.
pretty good senator.
But anyway, one of the things that I've always thought about, and I don't know where you stand on this, but I believe that the Kennedy assassination was a conspiracy.
Yeah, you and I shared a little bit about that, and I am open-minded on that to a degree. History, they say, though, here's the you've got your reason, which is valid,
Right.
and I want you to say it. But what other people say is that if you haven't got connected dots anywhere else in 50 years,
Yeah.
then chances are that poor soul Oswald with a $22 rifle, evidently he acted alone. But you're saying there's a and by the way, because of Kennedy's situation, there were three possible, and there'll be a fourth with my luck after saying three. One would be Russia, because Oswald was over there
Yep.
for a couple of years and married a Russian young woman
Yep.
when he was over there. One was Castro, because
Right.
unfortunately the United States engages in assassination attempts on leaders, which I don't agree with that at all, because if you try to get a leader of a country, he may come back and try to get you.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, the mafia
So the
connection.
Bay of Pigs situation.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then, well, not the Bay of Pigs, the fact that they had assassins trying to kill Castro.
Oh, I know.
Oh, they were trying to poison his food.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, if you or I lived in
Yeah.
Cuba, we would be food testers.
Yeah.
They'd say, try that, Donnie. See if you like that. And then last one, and the last one, of course, was the mafia.
Right.
Because at
You
that
got 'em.
time, Bobby Kennedy was on the mafia, and the mafia was known to be, at that time, people forget what 50 years ago was like.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Walter Cronkite also, John?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, give us a little bit on give us your reason why you think
Well,
it would be a
I have a
conspiracy,
couple
which
of
is
I
valid.
think I told you. I
Yes, you
mentioned
did.
to you
That's what I
briefly.
want to hear.
When my daughter was in middle school, the teacher had them do some research on John Kennedy's assassination.
Right.
And specifically, the teacher was looking for whether they concluded that John Kennedy was shot by Oswald alone, or whether there was a conspiracy. And, of course, being the good father that I always tried to be,
Sure.
I helped her with her assignment, I helped her do a lot of the research,
Yeah.
and we concluded
Yeah.
that it was a conspiracy.
Okay.
And
But
tried
you
to
had a
back it up.
reason too, John.
Yeah, I had two reasons.
As a former
essentially.
policeman, you had one reason.
As a former policeman and as a gun enthusiast, I had one big reason.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at that Zab Magruder film, by the way, it helps to have your movie camera. You know that Zab Magruder sold that film to one of the news outlets for $150,000 back at the time,
What are you supposed to be worth now?
which I have no idea. But anyway, if you look at the Zab Magruder film and you see Kennedy being shot, there's one sequence there, it might be the second one or third one, I can't tell, where his head simply jerks backwards.
Yes.
Now remember, Oswald was in the depository behind
And
Kennedy.
he was firing down.
He was firing down and across,
back of his-
horizontally,
yeah, okay.
and to the back of his head.
That's right.
Now, everything I've ever done with a gun, whether
Hmm.
it was hunting, shooting game, shooting targets, shooting anything, when I shoot something, it doesn't come towards me.
I know.
It goes back.
I know.
Now, there have been some people that tried to
So
say
the-
it can come towards you,
What
but
happened to
just
his
use
head
logic.
didn't
And if one
under your
sequence
professional training,
where
it didn't
Ken-
answer. I wonder why
Right.
they didn't follow up on
When
that.
Kennedy
That's a good
said,
theory.
because a lot of people don't know anything about guns and ballistics, and it's very easy.
Yes, but you would think
You would
know.
think. Now, he also had obviously a big hole in the back of his head. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned that Oswald was using special bullets. Well, they have something that's pretty commonplace. They still sell them today. They're called hollow points. A hollow point
They spread
bullet,
out
instead
when-
of having
yeah.
the bullet shape and solid,
Yeah.
a hollow point bullet has a narrow canal inside of it. So in other words, there's a hole out, yes.
Yeah.
So when it hits, it immediately goes like this,
Yeah.
see?
Yeah.
So the exit wound with a hollow point bullet will always be larger than the entry wound, which would be more like a regular hole because it hasn't
And
started
that,
to
and of course,
flatten yet.
his brain did.
Yes, it did explode, and Jackie Kennedy picked a piece of it off the
I know,
back
I
of the
know,
car.
I know.
So that to me said, wait a minute, that shot came from the front. I don't care what else you say. To me, that shot definitely came from the front. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And beyond that, there were other things. For instance, they had a patrolman, a motorcycle cop at the time who had his radio open. You probably heard this in the past.
No, but
And they picked up some sequence in the shots
Some event.
as a result of that, which kind of went against what they're trying to
Well,
say.
one of
Then
the
they
thi-
had the zigzag bullet
There
that
was-
went through Kennedy, took
Yeah.
a left turn, right turn, and then went through John Connally, which is totally absurd. Bullets don't do this in midair. They may glance
And there
off.
is also a theory. It's amazing that the conspiracy didn't gain more, but it has.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, that $22 rifle, which
Yeah.
was like a $12 rifle, and the
They had a test where they took a
they
expert marksman.
they couldn't have the sequence that close
right.
with that
Right,
rifle.
that's right, and that's what the expert proved.
Enough to
If
make
you
you
get
mad.
an expert, a ranger or something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
grab this gun, try to bring the, and remember, this guy was shooting at a still target.
Yep.
Okay? Kennedy was moving. And
Yeah.
Oswald,
Yeah.
as it turned out, was not that great a shot when
He was a
in-
good shot.
He wasn't that great a shot, though,
Well,
when
if
he
it-
was in the Army.
we don't think
And that's
so.
what they brought
Yeah.
to bear, because this other guy,
Yeah.
after a couple of tries, was just able to do it in the sequence that it was supposedly done
With a $22 rifle.
with a $22 rifle
that's pretty
in
good. That's pretty
the
good.
scope. But after looking at all of this, I realized there's something bad here. And it's coming from very powerful factions. And let me read you this, lest you doubt the veracity of my
I beg your pardon, sir. I was not
The
questioning your
United States,
veracity, whatever
listen
that
to-
means.
Listen to this now.
Okay,
The United States House of Representatives Select Committee
Yes.
on Assassinations.
Yes.
This was the second committee.
when was this formed?
This was in 1976.
Okay,
They were formed. They were after the initial
76, 70, so,
the additional
63, 73,
Right,
so
right.
13 years.
to investigate the assassinations of John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. Did you know about this?
No,
The committee investigated until 1978, 2 years, and issued its final report and concluded that Kennedy was very likely assassinated as a result of a conspiracy.
okay. They didn't say what kind of a conspiracy, just a conspiracy.
Yes. But
And what
a
about
lot of
Martin
people
Luther
aren't
King?
aware of that. Well, I didn't pick up
They
on
didn't go
Martin
on that one.
Luther King. That'll be something
I did
for
say
another
the
time.
call called me. The call called me,
Yeah.
and they asked me, and I said, you know, the thing that really got me at that age, I was 30 years of age,
Yeah,
and I said it was John Fitzgerald Kennedy,
right.
then it was Martin Luther King,
Right.
and then it was Bobby
Yeah.
Kennedy. And after a while, you begin to say, what is going on
Yeah,
here? You know,
exactly.
it's like, the whole way of life that we seem to be headed towards is suddenly, it went from the president who was 46 years of age to a president that was
It was
in his...
incredible.
Yeah.
It was absolutely
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you that there are evil elements out there everywhere with the power to take somebody out. Now look at Martin Luther King. You know, obviously at that time, a lot of people wanted him dead.
Oh, yeah.
And they finally got to him.
Yes.
And look at Bobby Kennedy. After what Bobby Kennedy did with the mafia when he was Attorney General,
Yeah.
they had it in for him. I mean,
But this fellow's still around.
they
that-
were gonna
that
get
shot
him.
him. He's still about.
yeah, I know he is.
You know, and he's...
I know he is. And why did Jack Ruby immediately shoot Oswald?
I saw that. by
right
the way.
after.
I was watching television.
Right
I
after.
saw. I saw.
I saw it live too.
Yeah.
Right after he said, "I don't know what's going on here. I'm just a patsy." No.
I didn't do it. He said, getting in the
I'm a
elevator.
patsy.
Yeah. And
Who's to know for sure?
And there you go. The difference between now and then. Imagine taking him into an guarded crowd.
Right.
There's a man with a weapon coming in there
Right.
while they've got the assassin of the president of the
Well,
United States.
that's what they said. How could this guy get in there?
Yeah.
Why wasn't he under top
And he
security?
was a semi-gangster anyway.
Yeah, he was.
Not a
He
gangster,
was,
but he was a
had
wannabe
gangster
type of
affiliations
thing.
because he owned
Yeah.
clubs
Yeah.
and so forth, and they were partially run
Yeah.
by the gangster.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of the saddest days of all of our lives. And the funny thing is, I don't believe Kennedy was a great president.
Didn't have time to be great.
He could have been.
That's what we're saying. What
Yeah.
might have been.
What might have been, we'll
and
never
it
know. He wasn't
contradicts.
a bad president.
It contradicts what I've been saying right along, though. The second term always gets you.
Yeah.
He would have, I think, if he had got reelected, which
Yeah.
wasn't, maybe not, but if he had been reelected, I think he was learning by his mistakes, and that's why I really would hope that the current president, who I voted for, I told you that, I hope he learns from his mistakes, because John Fitzgerald Kennedy learned from the Bay of Pigs, and therefore on the missile crisis he managed to come to the fore, speaking to the right people and getting the right decisions done. So he learned from his mistakes. I hope Obama learns from his mistakes on how to do this. And the problem with it is, though, if you go to correct it and you've got a bunch of people trying to win the next election by virtue of kicking you when you're down, it makes it difficult to do that, because there are people out there who are raining on his parade, even though he's trying to turn his act around a little bit, if you will. But
Well, I think part of that, Don, to me, I can explain it from my perspective. I can explain it because he's such a polarizing figure.
well, he's president.
No, but I mean a polarizing figure in terms of where he sits on the scale. If you go all the way to the right, and
Oh,
then
you
come
mean
all the way
he's,
back
you
to the
mean
left.
he's a liberal?
Yes, not just a liberal.
Yeah.
An incredible liberal, and most of his policies and his strategies are founded in redistribution of the wealth and socialism.
Yeah.
Now that drives real conservatives crazy, so much so
I
that they
find
split
the
the
humor
party.
in that, yeah.
That they split the party. That's where the Tea Party came from, Don.
In a way.
Because it was so
yeah,
polarized.
I know.
It had to happen.
But the Tea Party's going to kill whoever wants to be president in the next election is going to kill them. You know, it isn't
Yeah.
the first time, John. I must give you my input onto this.
Sure.
John Fitzgerald Kennedy came about as a result of winning a senatorial race against a gentleman that was an odds-on favorite,
Yeah.
Henry Cabot Lodge. Henry
Cabot Lodge,
Cabot
yeah.
Lodge.
Yeah, I remember him.
And not only was he pro Eisenhower over Taft,
Right.
but the Taft people, the conservatives, turned on him. I don't say they voted for John Kennedy. I don't believe they did. But Republicans are known for what you call sitting on their hands.
Yeah.
They didn't vote.
Yeah.
So
Well, they
Kennedy,
probably thought he was a shoo-in. Didn't bother.
no, they didn't care about him. They were angry about him because he backed Eisenhower,
Yeah,
who
okay.
was considered the liberal over the conservative Taft.
Yeah.
And so therefore, they, in a fashion, put John Fitzgerald Kennedy into the Senate seat. I don't know if there's books written on that.
There must be books written on that.
On the play that the Kennedys, of course, with the
But I'll tell
D's.
you what, John F. Kennedy never would have been president without his father.
Oh,
His
I would
father
beg
had
to say
his
his
father
mother.
had tremendous
His
pull.
mother.
Well, his mother, yeah, the Kennedy family.
Yeah.
Had tremendous
She was
pull.
a brilliant politician,
Yeah.
Rose Kennedy. People, maybe they don't understand that. She was a one.
Yeah.
I will give you one trivia, which probably is not known,
Yeah.
and it's just a side to side on the Kennedy family little story. There was at the time, when the Kennedys were younger, called the Kennedy nurse. She was the lady who took care of Joe the Elder. And then when he had a stroke, she couldn't do it anymore because she couldn't see him in that state. But she was at all of the births of all
yeah.
of the children. She was at Patrick Bouvier being buried. She was at that. She was at all
Yeah.
these functions. But they also had one, these Kennedys have skeletons, but they're all out of the closet by now. And it was
would
Roseanne, I believe, the daughter that had the retarded
disabilities, yes.
special. And they had a lobotomy is the word
Yes,
I'm
I
looking
think
for.
that's right, yeah.
And as a result of that, she was special need. She lived until just recently.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the nurse wanted to specialize in that, and there was no course in Massachusetts specializing in that for her master's degree. And so she found out it was in Rhode Island. This is the Kennedy nurse now. She found out it was in Rhode Island. That was the only place she could go. She didn't have any money. And so she went to John Kennedy, who was President of the United States,
Right.
and she explained to him that she didn't have enough money. He said, I will fund your education, because the guy had a great sense of humor.
Yeah.
People, but I want to see your report card. He said, I want to see your card. And then he said, there's two things I want to see your report card, and I want to give you your diploma when you get it.
Isn't that nice?
And
he
so
did?
she said, I went in and I showed her my card. He says, you're doing very, very well. You're all kept for another semester. Assassinated. Bobby Kennedy comes to him and says, I've talked to, in the family, and I am talked to John about his paying for your education. I will continue to do that. I will want to see your report card, and I will also be there and give you your diploma at that time. She went nights. Bobby Kennedy was killed.
Yeah.
On the day she graduated, on the stage, Teddy Kennedy gave her
Good.
her diploma.
That's
Now
good.
that's a Kennedy story.
That's a nice story.
That's a Kennedy nice
a
story.
really good story.
It is, and
Yeah.
she, and she then could specialize for special people at that time. I don't know.
So
whether
did she continue to take care of the daughter?
No, she never did. No,
Oh,
she
she
just
didn't.
wanted to specialize in that so that she could
So she
join
could
that-
help other people,
She
yeah.
could help other people with it. Yeah.
Very
Well,
nice
that's a small story, which
I like
it's
that
true.
story.
That's a true story, as she told it.
How do you feel about Iran sanctions?
Well, do you want to get into that deep, or do you want to hold that for the next time?
I
Okay,
don't
go
think
ahead.
It's not that deep for me. It might be deep for
Okay,
you.
no, but 9 minutes, I don't know how that
Yeah,
works.
well,
Go ahead.
my
Okay,
comments are very brief.
give me 10.
My position, no, I won't give you 10, I'll give you 5 or less.
Yeah.
My position is that we should not relieve the sanctions on Iran. Now, I know John Kerry's hopping on that, and a lot of the heads of all the countries over there want to release the sanctions in Iran in order to get a little bit of pullback on the nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
And I'm asking myself, Don, why in the world would we ever want to do something like that? Now, we know that we hurt them with these sanctions, or they wouldn't be at the table.
That's
now,
right.
they could have some other motives,
Yeah.
a couple I'll mention in a minute.
Yeah.
But, you know, why would we trust them when they've taken every doggone proposal that we've made and that United Nations has made, and they've trashed them and they haven't complied with them?
This is why.
Now they
yeah.
say that they'll let
Yeah.
some people in to look at their plants,
Yeah.
but there's a couple that are off limits. Now, what's that all about? So
That's called negotiations.
Benjamin Netanyahu,
Yeah.
who I have an enormous amount of respect for,
Who they said hasn't even looked at this.
he has looked at it.
Oh, he hasn't. He just said no.
Yeah, he absolutely has.
Oh, he has looked at it? I didn't know.
He
You
thinks
know
it's-
him?
Personally, no. But I know a lot about him. I follow what he
Yeah, I
does.
know. I'm in favor of
You
Israel.
know
That's
that
fine.
Israel's
Israel's my
strongest ally in the Mideast.
Oh, they're my
obviously.
heroes, Israel.
I
Because
like
they-
Israel.
Because they know how to take care of things without going to war.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they may have no choice. Now, that's another thing. Obama's practically ruined our relationship with Israel. Over all these years. Are you kidding me? Look at the history of what Obama does relative to Israel. You know, he starts out by wanting to restore borders from the 60s in the West Bank, and he doesn't provide the support that Benjamin Netanyahu has been asking for. You know,
Yeah,
if he goes to
he's
war
a
with
whiner.
Iran.
He's a whiner.
And now,
Yeah,
now,
okay, all right.
Obama doesn't want to go. Remember what he did with Syria? He had to get the approval of everybody on the planet before he'd even bother to attack Syria. So what happens? Putin suddenly comes forward, puffs up his chest. I'm Superman. I'll make the deal, and he's the one that resolves the whole thing with
Well, they haven't resolved it.
well, they're in the process with Putin. Now, Syria, so we're saying let's lift this
No,
stuff.
I
So
am half agreeing with you.
All right, Netanyahu, will agree with this.
I'm half agreeing with you.
Okay.
listen.
Netanyahu, I'm going to give you 3/4. Netanyahu, okay, decides
Yeah,
now
yeah.
that he's going to attack Iran if, in fact, you know, he feels that it's absolutely necessary. Doesn't
Well-
look to the United States anymore.
No, he shouldn't.
But he could have at one time. Do you doubt for a second?
What do you mean? To what? We should put forces in there?
No, I'm talking if they decide to hit Iran to stop their nuclear weapons, period,
Yes.
by a military strike,
And
and
therefore
Israel
we
goes
will
in,
do what?
you better believe I would go in with Israel. They're our allies. We
You would
pledged to
send
support them.
soldiers?
I would do whatever I had to do to help Israel knock out Iran's nuclear weapons. Because if Iran gets nuclear weapons,
You're killing
every
me here,
Mideastern country is going to have a nuclear arms race. Watch
Will
this.
we ever learn that
7
we are
years.
not to get in
I
any more
understand
of those
that, and
wars?
I'm basically for that. And I am basically for that. As a
Except-
libertarian, part libertarian,
Yeah.
I don't like going to war either. I don't want to go to war.
But you're ready.
But this is our interest. No, this is our direct interest on. So he steps away from Netanyahu. Now he raises the possibility that Netanyahu may strike, whereas before, when they had the United States with Israel, nothing might have happened because they might have figured, I don't want to mess around with the United States. So what is the United States
You mean
do?
there's someone that doesn't want to mess around with us?
Yeah.
Who would that be?
Yeah. Do you realize that the United
There
States...
isn't anybody on the planet
Do you realize
that
that
hasn't
the
beaten us in the last 50
Do
years.
you believe there's a possibility that the
They're
United
afraid
States
of
might have
us.
said, hey, let's back up on the sanctions? That way Israel won't dare attack while all this is going on and we're trying to resolve this sanction thing and it's nothing more than a ploy?
The reason I'm saying Israel are my heroes is that there's two things that Israel know how to do that America hasn't figured out how to do it. They kind of did it within the last month or so. They had one of those drones kill one of the
Right.
people who were part of one of them one of the things the Arabs did.
Yeah.
And he hadn't done it for 4 or 5 years, so he thought he was secure. And they did it to him.
Right.
When,
By the way, that's assassinating leaders, which you don't like, right?
I did, no, it depends upon what type of leader we're talking about. I'm not talking about Joseph Stalin. I'm not talking about Tito.
but you're talking
I'm talking about a field officer who is not the leader of the Arab nation in any way.
No,
form, or manner.
but a big leader in that segment of the of Al Qaeda for the area. I mean, you have to consider.
There's a big
they
difference
made a-
between assassinating Franklin Delano Roosevelt
course there is.
and assassinating George Patton. Okay? You with me on that?
Do you think Judge Patton was assassinated? Is that what you're talking?
No. No, I'm saying that this guy
There
was
is
an
that theory
underling
out there.
to the big picture here.
Okay.
And
All right, I'll give you that.
Well, there's two things that Israel is good at doing, and that's why they're my heroes on what they do. There was an Olympic time when a group of people conspired to kill the athletes in the Olympics.
Yes.
It was about 20 years ago.
Yeah, remember it very well.
And as soon as they did it, they knew, and the people that sent them knew, they were all dead because they attacked the Israel athletes.
Right.
Every single one of them was that's the way.
Eliminated.
And when you do that kind of a thing, you begin to realize that people have to have a very strange value system to do that. That's called suicide. And the other thing is, though, that Israel is over there on the border with 3 countries probably that want to wipe them out. Their whole
Right.
dedication is to wipe them out.
That's right.
And they have gone to war in the last 50 years probably 2 times. We've gone to war, and you
know.
want us to go to war again.
No.
We've gone to war with different countries where we can't even get out. Israel go in and 2 weeks
But
later
I
they'll
would
go
go
home.
back and I would say I wouldn't have gone to war in a couple of circumstances that we went to war.
That's what I agree with you.
I would
you
say
and I,
that.
you are on the same
But
page.
for this cause,
But
this cause is just
That's-
absolutely critical to
John,
us.
that's the one that we always do when we do it. The ones that you say now, looking back, I wouldn't have done it. At that time, though, it seemed to be a logical thing to do, and that's why your friend George the Younger got himself involved in those kind of things.
I think that what George did in terms of attacking Iraq, at the time he did it. Now,
Yes.
Let me clarify.
He was correct.
He was correct.
That's what I'm saying. You say this about
Well, you have to go
joining
on
Israel.
the best intelligence that you have, Don.
They didn't.
If you they didn't have weapons of mass destruction,
They
but
had a
everybody
guy who
said they
came back
did.
and told them they didn't
But
have it.
the Congress said go. They were ready to go. Both the Democrats and the Republicans. Everybody said go because they thought they had weapons of mass destruction. Turns out they didn't, but they still killed a
Now, wait a minute.
malevolent
When
dictator.
you say, I'm going to give you another name now. I don't know if I've got it here.
We only have a minute
ju-
left, you know.
Yeah,
Do
but
you
you
want-
have to be, you are known for your patience. Oh, no,
me?
I got Elizabeth. Joseph Wilson was the one who told them that there were no weapons of mass
well,
destruction.
big
So,
deal.
so to get even with Joseph for saying that, they outed Valerie Plon, who was his
I
wife,
remember
who
Valerie
was
Plon.
a spy.
Oh, you think that was as a result of?
Well, of course
what
it
he
was.
said?
Why else? They didn't even know who she was until he came back and said,
Yeah.
there are no weapons of mass destruction. He found this out, and he told them no, and so then they outed his wife as a spy. By the way, just within the last week, and as a tease, the next time around, we'll go into more of this.
Okay.
She's written a book, and she's making a lot of money.
Wow.
So she's okay. Don't worry. I know you worry about her.
Oh,
Don't
yes.
you worry about she's doing fine.
You know, big boys are in the political circles doing all this stuff.
We're going to say thank you very much for watching because the next time we got a tease now. We're going to go into some things. We're going to talk about Elizabeth Warren too. That's
Yeah, very
a
interesting.
tease. Elizabeth Warren. Thank you all for watching. See you in 2 weeks.
Glad to have you again this evening. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time.
See this.